This week on Cooking with Bernie, we're making Caleb Keys' stuffed pork chops. All right, so we're going to start our stuffed pork chops. This recipe comes to us from one of our trainers at PFP, Caleb Keys. So we're going to start with thick cut pork chops, and I am going to butterfly these myself. You can of course buy pork chops that are already butterflied, but I like to do it myself. Get a really sharp knife. This knife is specifically for cutting meats, and you just want to cut with the fat side down. This doesn't particularly have a fat side in this case. We're just going to cut it about in the middle and butterfly this. Get it nice and open. Okay, same thing, fat side down. And I'm sure Marty is going to fast forward through this so we can get this. Bernie's out with his shark toy. That's a new favorite toy we got for him. All right, so we've got our pork chops cut and our very sharp knife put away and cleaned. So I'm just gonna salt and pepper this. I'm not gonna go too crazy with the salt because in the filling for the stuffed chops we're using bacon and that's fairly salty, so I'm not gonna go nuts. We're gonna add some pepper. And then we're gonna make our filling for the stuffed pork chops. So I'm using a large shallot. This is one apple. It's a sweet apple, whatever your preference is. I cored it and then chopped it up into small pieces, so that's one apple. I use a package of bacon. I use your favorite thick cut bacon. I prefer to bake my bacon in the oven. So after baking it, soaking out all the grease with some paper towel, and then when it's really crisp, it's easy just to crumble by hand. So we're just adding the bacon. Then we're gonna add, and let that cool to room temperature. Then we're gonna add some soft cheese. Today I'm using crumpled goat cheese. Last time I made this, I used feta. You can use Gruyere, whatever is soft, whatever soft cheese you want to add. And then whatever your preferred herbs are, this is some chopped rosemary and thyme. Last time I made this, I just used some rosemary, but whatever you prefer. And then we're just gonna mix this. I'm just gonna mix it by hand. I washed my hands, I promise, before I did this. And then we are gonna stuff our chops. So you can just do this by hand. I like to use a tablespoon measuring spoon to kind of stuff these. And you can just put in as much as you want. I have 5 chops today. You can use anywhere from 4 to 6 chops. I use 2 or 3 tablespoons of filling. Kind of pack it in and then fold it over. I don't like it to get too full because the cheese is going to melt and it's going to make a little bit of a mess, but usually 2 or 3 good heaping tablespoons worth of filling per pork chop. All right, so we got our chops stuffed. I coated them with salt and pepper, and now we're gonna sear them. I'd recommend using a cast iron skillet for this. My cast iron skillet is not big enough for all of these, so I'm just gonna do a couple at a time here. I'm using canola oil. I put in a good, probably 1/4 inch of oil to get it nice and hot first. Just gonna sear them for a couple minutes per side. And then if you have a cast iron skillet that's big enough for all your chops, because generally you can have at least 4 to 6 chops with this recipe, you can just throw it right into the oven, but my pan is not quite big enough, so. Oops. So we got our last couple chops out. Gonna turn off the heat. And generally the The cheese inside the stuffing is going to act like a glue to keep the pork chops together. We're going to cover this with foil. And then we're going to cook it in the oven at 425 for 30 minutes. So our initial 30-minute bake time is up. We're just going to get this out of the oven for a sec. We're going to take off the foil and then we're going to put it back in for about 20 minutes and it'll get nice and brown. And then we'll check the temperature of the pork with a meat thermometer and make sure that it's cooked completely through. So just put this back in, smells good. We're going to do this about 20 minutes. All right, so our chops are finally done, nicely browned here after taking the foil off. And then we are going to use our handy food thermometer, make sure it's about 145 degrees, around 140, and give it a minute. That's about 145, so it's gonna cook a couple extra minutes here when we let it rest. Okay, and then I'm gonna put this on. You're waiting for your serving. You're waiting for your serving, aren't you, Burns? Yeah, you are. So these are our cooked chops from Caleb Keese. Thanks for watching and catch us next week on Cooking with Bernie.